I've been looking forward to this. This is so cool. I thought, I've got to get Jim on one of these days. This is going to be just good.
Well,
Uh,
it's I think it's kind of fun myself. I sure
yeah,
like, and I want to see what you're doing be very effective, and I think it will be.
yeah. So let's see. Let's start out here. Full disclosure, I've known Jim for a really long time, and I met Jim through a friend of mine who actually was working for me at the time, a guy named Bob Lose, who was my national service manager and commissioning guy for Legacy Chiller System. So many of you guys out there may have talked to Bob in the past. So Bob Lose and I were having some discussions, and I says, one of these days I want to do some training on how to teach techs how to be better techs, because we were constantly frustrated, Bob and I, about the fact that we couldn't find technicians that were consistently technically knowledgeable, right? So anyway, what was really cool, Jim, is Bob said, "Hey, you got to meet Jim O'Malley," right? So what's really fascinating, Jim, is our lives have kind of gone for full circle, because at the time when I first met you, which I don't know, when was that? 10 years
Oh,
ago?
you were still living down there,
Yeah.
uh, down below Bob back there on Oak Hill, and gosh, I don't know. It's Bob and I were still working at that time. Well, we had just stopped, I guess. So that had to be back 20 years ago, maybe
It was a long time.
a long
So
time ago.
I remember what it was like at the time. I go, man, this is so cool. When I met you, you had all these huge ideas, and your background in education was amazing. And what happened for me was I was just laser focused on growing my business at the time. And I just couldn't, I couldn't just muster the time and the energy to put together an educational platform. So that's why I'm saying, isn't it kind of weird how everything's kind of gone full circle? Now we're both talking about this finally after all these years.
Yeah, it's something that has needed to happen for a long time. Is for all of us in America to realize the importance of skilled trades and skill training.
Yeah.
Um, it's just been ignored for so many years, and now it's coming to a head again with shortages in labor and real skilled people.
Yeah. One of these days, we were talking the other day, one of these days I'm going to get you and Bob on. That would be a good conversation. Just to let you guys know, Bob and Jim, if you guys have ever seen Grumpy Old Men, you get them together, and you just don't know what's going to happen with these two. And they're both educators. And anyway, so I'm sure Bob's going to eventually listen to this. But like we were talking about, if I get the two of you guys on, I'm going to have to figure out a way to put a bleep button in here somewhere.
Yeah, you better do that. I mean, unless you want to go to the X-rated side of it every once in a while.
Don't want to
I
scare
call
the
it,
kid.
I refer to him as the putz. So he calls me the moron. So we go back and forth a lot.
There, and it goes downhill from there. So Jim, what's your background? So just kind of put it out there to my guys out here, my folks. What's your background? I know what it is, but I'm sure that it would be a great framework for the rest of the stuff we're going to talk about.
Well, in my career life, I kind of did everything in tens. 10 years here, 10 years there. I don't know. I guess maybe after 10 years, I got bored at one thing, so I had to go do something else. But basically, I got out of high school and decided I'm going to go be a college kid, and that lasted for 2 semesters, and I got disgusted with trying to maintain a draft deferment. That was during the Vietnam years. So I just went and enlisted and did that anyway. And I went into the Navy, and of course the Navy, if they don't do anything else, they teach you trades. And so I was a fireman in the Navy, firefighter, and then along with that, you always had supplemental trades, and I did all kinds of fiberglass work, and I did work in woodworking, and I ended up my last years running a carpenter shop on a repair ship. And so we did, I did a couple of tours in Vietnam and did that, and came out, and I thought, well, I guess I better do something. So I decided I'd go back to school for a while. Well, that didn't last too long either. I decided, well, I'm going to have to do something else. So I ended up, long story short, I ended up going to work for Department of Forestry, California Department of Forestry, as a fire engineer, as a fire engineer, and then later a captain. And so I did that for about 10 years and ended up as a fire crew supervisor in a conservation camp there in El Dorado County, Growlersburg in Georgetown. Anyway, I did that, and they had shops in there, which we used to, when we weren't firefighting, we were using the inmates to do things. And I had a carpenter shop in there, and I started teaching these guys how to do a lot of this stuff. And anyway, long story short, the Department of Corrections came in and said, hey, we want you to be a teacher. And so I said, well, I don't have a college degree. I've got some college, but I don't, excuse me. These things get stupid after a while, but I've got to turn it off. Anyway, so I did when I started going to school to learn how to be a vocational educator, vocational teacher. And so I did that. I went to Berkeley, lovely Berkeley. That was always fun. Went to Berkeley on the weekends, got my teaching credentials all done, and I started teaching cabinet making, carpentry at the Growlersburg camp. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I ended up going to work for the chief of education for the department down in Sacramento because I wasn't too far from there.
This is the Department of Corrections?
Yeah, Department of Corrections. I went to work for her over the vocational programs and ended up as the assistant chief over all of the academic and vocational programs in the institutions. So I did that for about 10 years. And so I decided, well, I've had enough of that. So I ended up going from there. I moved over and took over the Sacramento County Regional Occupation Programs, which are all of the vocational training programs in the high schools in that region. So I had about like 8 different school districts in their high schools. We had about, if I remember right, there was like 18 or 19 high schools that we served. And we also had an adult population. I got involved with labor unions there because it became quite obvious to me that for the kids to have the best chance to go into a trade in that area, in that region, was through the union apprenticeship programs. And so I made I built a relationship with the local labor council and the president of that, and we worked out a deal where we were doing pre-apprenticeship training. There was a lot of resistance at first because some of the unions said, well, we don't want you teaching the skills that we want to teach them in apprenticeship programs because, quite frankly, you guys don't know what you're doing. You need, the skills change rapidly and all your curriculum and everything is always behind. So, and I agreed, because the skill training that we had that we were able to teach them was remedial, to say the least, as to what they needed to be journeyman carpenters or whatever. But what we did do is we built a program around pre-apprenticeship, which taught not only the basic skills of what a 2x4 was in the instance of carpenters, but also the math and the blueprint reading and all of those kind of things that went along with it, not to teach them, not so they walk in and say, I have that skill, but so they could walk in to an apprenticeship program with enough knowledge to really have, kind of a leg up as they were starting their apprenticeship program. They weren't going in there cold. A lot of kids that go into apprenticeship programs, they go in there thinking, well, how hard is it? They told me in high school that, if I didn't want to do anything else, I could always be a carpenter or something. Well, how hard is it to do that? It can't be that hard. And then they fall flat on their face. So by giving them this leg up with the agreement with the apprenticeship programs, that the kids that we turned out of the pre-apprenticeship programs would automatically go into their apprenticeship program, it was a heck of a deal for the kids. Apprenticeship programs in carpentry are 5 years, and they start the apprenticeships. They start at half the journeyman level rate. So, I was looking the other day. I dug it out here the other day. Carpenter rate in the Sacramento area is about $49 an hour for journeyman.
Nowadays?
Huh?
Nowadays, today?
Yeah, today, yeah. And so they would go into an apprenticeship program at $24.50 an hour for a kid out of high school would go in there and start at $24.50 an hour. They'd start at 50% of the journeyman level pay. And then every year they got a 10% raise if they met all of their requirements, which mean they had to go to classes and on weekends, and they had to work. They did their work. They worked for different masters or different carpenters anyway. Anyway, every year they'd get a 10% raise, so that at the end of the 5th year, when they would turn out as journeymen, they were making the $49 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's kind of how the system works. Well, it's great. I mean, in those days, it wasn't that much. In those days, I think they started at about 14 an hour because they were making about 28 then, the journeyman. So anyway, they were really learning the skill along with all of the training that went with it and getting paid for that.
Right.
And it was a perfect example. And of course, we had seven or eight different labor trades there in Sacramento area that we could place these kids at: plumbing, electricians, sheet metal, which is AC&R, for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We did all that kind of stuff and placed those kids into those programs for years. And it was a very successful program, still is. In fact, the Northern California Construction Training there in Sacramento is still working with the unions and placing kids into the unions. And that was a program that I helped get started there.
Wow. Now, are they doing other things besides carpentry now at that school?
Yeah, carpentry was just an example. The laborers, they place a lot of kids with the laborers, and they do high school kids and they do young adults. So kids that are high schoolers definitely have a shot at it. They have an advantage actually. But then the kids that have dropped out or finished high school and haven't figured out what they want to do, they can also get in that program as young adults and get placed into the apprenticeship program. So they're moving a lot of kids into these programs, which is great. Mm-hmm. And they still are doing that.
It's real fascinating.
They give them GED, give them, all kinds of help with getting driver's licenses and GEDs if they don't have them, so that they can, because a lot of unions, they don't want kids now that are not high school or GED, at least. So it goes on and on now. What those guys would do is prepare them to go into an apprenticeship program, mm-hmm. which that's the way to do it. And that's at the high school level. Yeah. Adults that want to get into the trade, that's a different issue. Then you can, you're really teaching them the trade then. Mm-hmm. So
what do you think's going on in the trending right now with apprenticeships? Is there more activity in the apprenticeship programs now, or less, do you think?
I'm not fresh on that as far as where I've been working with them for a long time, but from what I can ascertain, yeah, they're doing well.
Okay.
When we first broke into it, it was kind of a good old boy system, right. Or my sister's nephew needs a job, or my nephew needs, yeah. So they'd go into the union that way.
Yeah.
And of course, then they would be legacies, so they would get protected, and eventually they'd at least learn how to drive a nail, whether they were ever good carpenters or not. Mm-hmm. But now it's kind of like we've sophisticated that a little bit with this pre-training to get them into it. We actually set up, I helped, when I first retired, I started doing writing charter schools. And we actually set up Northern California Polytech was a charter school there in Sacramento that we established with NCCT. And we ran for about a year and a half, and of course the districts and everything were having a fit because we were stealing kids from them. So politically it didn't work out, but it was on its way of being a pretty good technical high school. We based it around, years ago, I know when my stepdad, before World War II and everything, he was telling me that he was a graduate in Fresno of Fresno Polytech Academy, or Fresno Polytech High School, I guess they called it then. And what it was is they got their basic education skills, reading, writing, math, and then they learned a trade. And his trade was plumbing. So when he came out of high school, he not only had a high school diploma with the basics, but he also had a trade. Mm-hmm. Of course, then World War II started, and then all the trades went to hell anyway. He finally got back to his trade after 4.5 years, 5 years in the Army. Mm-hmm. But we kind of built that technical, that charter school around that theory. and it was really taken off gangbusters. But in those days, charter schools were in the public education realm were, not really well liked. And of course you had to fight the politics to get anything done. It didn't work out. I mean, we couldn't keep it going, but it could still work today.
It seems there's this natural conflict, if you will, that doesn't need to be there, in my opinion, between, the brick and mortar educators, the assembly line, kid goes through grade school, goes through high school, and there just seems to be a mindset of the teachers and counselors and even parents who have a impression in their mind about what the college experience was like when they went to college, maybe a few decades ago. And that whole assembly line, if you will, for some reason along the way, the attitude about skilled trades, learning how to make something or fix something or whatever, it's really it's kind of turned into the consolation prize, right? So if nothing else works out, if you drop out of college or whatever and you have no other options, or you feel like you don't have any other options, you can always go be a plumber, or you always can go be an auto mechanic. And where do you think that originated, Jim? Where did that mindset come from that still, in my opinion, still exists today?
Well, I think the attitude came from the era when trades and everything were kind of looked down upon, as far as well. Yeah, like you said, if you're not smart enough to be a fancy businessman, you can always, go learn how to be a plumber or something like that. And the sophistication of trades was lost, and that's when the labor unions finally figured out that they needed to establish really formal apprenticeship programs. Mm-hmm. You say, well, I went to Penn State for 4 years, and I got a degree in liberal arts from Penn State, and so I'm an educated person. Well, what's the difference between that and I can tell you the difference, but I mean, what really is the difference between that and a kid that goes into an apprenticeship program for 5 years and completes that and comes out as a journeyman carpenter? Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is that, first of all, he or she were making a living, or making money anyway, through that college, that 5 years of their college. Right. And at the end, they had a trade and a skill, and they also belonged to an organization that was going to get them work. What did you have when you come out of college? Nothing. You're on your own. You got a degree. I got a piece of paper. Right. And I'm not banging college. I was in education, so obviously I had to do all the college stuff to be able to do what I needed to do in education. But the bottom line is that I worked in the skilled training area, where some of these guys are academicians, and they don't really grasp what skilled trades are all about until recently. I'm here in Colorado in Grand Junction, and we have a large school district here, and I was my daughter works in the school as a computer teacher. Anyway, so a lot of the teachers come over. Well, they were having a big curriculum change in the school district, which they've done. And I said, oh yeah, well, what are they going to do? And she says, oh, they're coming up with something totally new that very few people have even tried or have even been doing, and it's called competency-based education. I said, what? Competency-based education. I said, so you don't know what vocational education is, right? That is competency-based education, and it has been forever. Yeah. You're not given a theory to learn and to regurgitate. You're given a skill that you have to demonstrate. That's competency-based. And I told him, I said, I applaud you guys for finally getting there, but how come it's taken so long to realize that the idea of coming out of school with knowledge is wonderful and should still be there, but also having the skill to be able to apply that knowledge. Right. And if you have that, what have you got? You got you got somebody that can sit down and think and write, but what else can they do?
Yeah.
When they go to work in business or whatever, what's the first thing they have to do? They put them with some guy to teach them how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's coming around, but it's slow because of the old traditions. And of course, quite frankly, it's a lot of tradition is being protected by their unions, their teachers' unions.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a minute because I want to talk about your blog post because we'll get into your blog in a minute. What I'm seeing, and I've been spending a lot of time trying to get into the economics and the numbers of it, right? And if you think about it from an economic standpoint, and this is not a secret, the media just doesn't cover it, but the trajectory of increased costs to go to college, for example. And again, I'm not against college, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of stuff that's being missed here. So you look at over time, the cost, the annual increase of tuitions, and it doesn't matter if it's a JC. I think the smartest way to go is go into a JC, get your AA stuff out of the way, and then you bebop over to a regular four-year college and finish out your junior and senior year. That's the most cost-effective way to do it. But even then, if you model that out, you'll see that the annualized costs have consistently exceeded what cost of living is. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, it's not even close. So in other words, the cost of a four-year education continues to go up. And what I believe is happening, and I think you might have touched on this, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth in a minute, but I think that there's a machine. There's this big machine that colleges, they've got a lot of people involved. They've got the academic community. They all see the writing on the wall. They're looking at the same data. They know that the costs are going up for whatever reason. And the parents and the students, by the way, school loans are continuing to pay for it. So there's going to be a natural progression to say, oh, trades, nah, you don't want to do that. You need this. Right. And it just seems that's contributing to it. In other words, the value of a four-year degree is being amplified, and the value of being in skilled trades continues to be, and this is nothing new, continues to be depressed, pushed down as the secondary thing. I mean, what do you think about that? My hypothesis here.
I think you're right on. I think there has been some movement to the realization that academics won't fix your leaky sink. You have to have people to do that. And quite frankly, some of those people are making more money than some of the people that have college degrees.
Hey guys, quick announcement. If you have not stopped into our website at skilltraderescue.com, please do that. On the home page here, you will see that we have the Join the Movement email list. If you haven't signed up, please consider doing that. We have some amazing guests lined up for the podcast. I'm going to be getting the stories out of successful technicians and business owners in skilled trades. These are not just HVAC people. These are going to be from across the skilled trade spectrum. And my hope is that I'm going to be able to draw out of these people the things that have worked in their careers amazingly well, and the things that if they had a chance to talk to their younger self, what they would tell them not to do. So I want to share all that stuff with you. And if you sign up, you're going to be the first to know when we drop those new podcast episodes. Also, coming soon, we have the BEST workshop. It's a 5-day automated email workshop. However, you're going to give content to us through that workshop. You're going to get one-on-one feedback from our instructors, and we're looking to better your career. I've been teaching the BEST process for many, many years, about 2 decades, one-on-one, and I'm going to be trying to do that to the masses through this workshop. It's totally free. All you got to do is sign up, and as soon as you do that, you'll get alerts on your email as soon as these new podcasts come in, as well as the BEST workshop. So if you check it out, I will put a link to the website on the show notes for this episode today. So check it out.
In a lot of cases, a lot of your skilled tradesmen are making a lot more money than your school teachers, for example. Mm-hmm. The school teachers are not getting paid. I don't think the school teachers are being paid what they should be paid.
I agree.
On the other hand, there's still a lot of space between those with a college degree and those without.
Mm-hmm.
And those without that are in skilled trades are kind of diminishing that gap a lot because they're making pretty good money.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the issue right now today, in today's issue of truck drivers.
Yeah.
Truck driving is a skilled trade. Unfortunately, in some cases, there's not a lot of training goes along with it. There's a lot of classes out there that will get the student a truck driver license, but the actual training on driving trucks and mountains and stuff like that still is lacking. There's still a lot of area to do that. But truck drivers today, well, at least the ones that aren't setting up in Ottawa somewhere, truck drivers today, your older guys, your senior guys that are out there on the road and they're willing to do the work and stay on the road, they're knocking down figures, 100,000 a year now.
Or more.
That's a lot of money for a truck.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, I think this is a really good segue into your blog post, your very first blog post, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different, but there's a lot of things that are beginning to push these thoughts together.
Yeah.
There's a realization right now that basically there's a realization that the folks that are in skilled trades are becoming a lot more important to us than even as each year goes by, because those are the academicians, those are the big academic brains and everything, still can't do anything. They can't help themselves, and so that's where that relationship comes from VocEd to look at all of those different issues as far as it changes.
Mm-hmm. Do you think COVID has awakened America a little bit to that college or what's going on in the schools may be detrimental to our youth? Do you think that's one of the very few positive things that might have come out of COVID?
Yeah, I really do. COVID was horrible, obviously, and we lost a lot of great people because of COVID. I know that. But really the bottom line is that it opened eyes. Look at the parents in back east of Virginia and places like that have realized that their public school districts believe that they shouldn't have anything to say about what their kids are being taught.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute. When I was in the business, the first thing that we established for each trade that we were teaching was an advisory committee of the people from that trade
Mm-hmm.
that could come in and tell us what we should be teaching and what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't decide what is going to be taught. They would help us do that. And the same thing in high schools and grammar schools, whatever. The parent's the customer. If you go back to Deming and all of that, the thing is to serve the customer. Well, the customer is the parent. The product is the kid, and the parent controls that product, not the school, not the school district. It's the parent. And what irritates me the most is not irritating, but what I think frustrates me the most is that if parents would, and I think they're beginning to, but if parents realize that they control the school district and they can control it immediately. I used to tell my principals when I was in the business, we're looking at 50, in those days it was like $54 a day for every little butt that's in every seat.
I'm looking at that in your article right here. Yeah. So those of you that are listening to this podcast, what I'm talking about here is Jim's blog post from January 13th. It's called The Education Dilemma. That's what we're talking about now. And I'll put a link, and we'll go over more about the blog at the end of the podcast, but I'll put a link to this blog post as well as the blog in general. And so yeah, that's what I'm looking at here, Jim. So you're saying if a school district gets $10,000 per student per year, that comes out to $56 a day that school or district gets for that,
Right.
like you say, butt in the seat.
Right. That's the average daily attendance is what they get paid. That was what the amount would be. And that's at 10,000 a year. Some of these districts are spending a lot more than that.
Yeah.
You can see down there and a little further on down, if you had 300 kids and you had 300 parents and 300 kids, or less parents but more kids or whatever. But anyway, you had 300 kids at $56 a day, and you pulled them out. You said, okay, they're not coming to school today. All 300 of these kids are not coming to school today till you guys do it the way we want it done.
Mm-hmm.
School would be losing $17,000 a day in funding, and they can't stand that very long before they got to lay off a few administrators and some teachers and things like that.
Mm.
And so that's the problem. The parents actually can, if they were organized as the teachers union is, then they could control the school district by saying, all right, all the parents, the next week we're not sending our kids to school. Now what are you going to do? You going to do it our way or what?
So are these statistics based on the entire, from grade school all the way through high school, or does it change?
Pretty much a public school system.
Okay.
K-12.
Yeah.
When you get into college, the funding is different, but it's like in California, most of your colleges are supplemented by the state. And
right.
So it's still a funding issue there if they're not there. If they don't have the student, that's a problem you have in colleges, in my opinion, right now, is that they have to compete for students.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, if you wanted to go to Harvard, you better be right there at the top of all your classes and get the opportunity. And then you still might not get in.
Mm-hmm.
Today, if you got the money, come on in, baby, bring it on in.
Yeah, especially if you know how to row a boat or something like that. It's amazing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But you can see that in education, the problem that we have, and everybody says, well, the teachers union has to negotiate with administration to get its pay raises and all of that kind, and get what it wants with the curriculum it wants to teach and all this and that. It's got to negotiate through the administration. Mm-hmm. And I say, yeah, well, that's fine, but where's the administration come from?
Yeah.
They're all teachers.
Right.
They're teachers that have gone into administration. And I used to have to go to the negotiations, the union negotiations for pay raises every 2 or 3 years when I was working in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And in all those years, I'd never seen the teachers they demand whatever pay raise they want, but I've never seen them ever get a 5% pay raise that the administration didn't get too.
Yeah.
So, what kind of negotiation is that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's real interesting. The reason why I brought up COVID, and I wanted to get your insight on that, is I'm on the same page with you, Jim. I think what is happening here is because of COVID, these kids were studying at home. They were doing online courses. And I think that was good to keep everybody safe. It was a huge sacrifice for the parents, because if you have 2 working parents and you can't really get ahead in this United States nowadays unless you got 2 incomes coming in. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. So there was a big burden on that, but we all, sucked it up and got it done. And these parents are in there, and they happen to look over the shoulder of their kids once in a while and see what's actually being, taught. And they're getting a lot more than, STEM courses. They're getting, in my opinion, indoctrination. They're getting these social things that I guess they're talking about the CRT stuff. And I think that really bothered a big chunk of the population. And they're like, I'm paying for this stuff.
Well, and it was it was one of the byproducts of COVID, and is that the American parents have become able to see just what kind of stuff they were teaching their kids.
Yeah.
And, it seems to me like, first of all, public education had to go to online education. And quite frankly, most of them didn't know what they were doing. If you want to see an effective online education program, you need to look at some of the charter schools that are online, because they know how to do it. They've been for years. You need to look at some of the colleges that are online that are doing it. Phoenix, University of Phoenix, all of those things. I mean, those are the kind of, they know how to do it. But here we got a public education system, and the COVID hits and we shut everything down and tell the teachers, okay, go online and teach.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, they have, I mean, they didn't do a good job, but what they did do is they, instead of trying to teach the principles of their curriculum and math or whatever it might be, they did know that they could still teach social engineering stuff like CRT and that kind of stuff and work on the kids. And the problem with that is that mom especially were standing behind the kids going, oh my, what are my kids?
Yeah.
So and I think that's opened a lot of eyes.
Yeah.
In this country. The problem is that, quite frankly, in our society, we have a lot of parents that have kids that, you have the old mama bear syndrome, don't mess with my kid because you're going to be messing with mama bear. Mm-hmm. And that is a reality, and it always will be. The problem is that maybe that's a good percentage of our kids, maybe over half. We also have another group of kids that their parents don't care about anything but getting them out of the damn house for the day.
Yeah.
And they don't care what they're doing, and some of them don't even care if they go to school.
Right.
So there's that group too, and unfortunately for that group, they're going to get even worse and worse off in the long run because they don't have a mama bear looking over them. And so it's kind of a two-edged sword when it comes to that. COVID though has really opened the eyes of a lot of people to a lot of things, not only schools and what the schools are teaching, but they're beginning to look at what this democratic socialist movement in America is all about. Mm-hmm. And they're beginning to see that this is not America. This is not what we want, and at least a big chunk of them. At the end, you still got another large chunk that believes the other way. So,
right.
It's always going to be an argument to have to deal with. But
I think the majority, regardless of where you come down in your political persuasions, I think that the parents that are engaged, the ones that aren't engaged, that gets into a whole different subject. But let's just say the ones that are engaged, I believe in America still today that parents really want the best for their kids. They really do.
Sure.
And I think that what's being missed, and it's not necessarily a parent's fault. I just think that everybody gets into their habits. They're doing their day. They're going about doing what they're doing. And everybody thinks, like people that are in their 30s and 40s, their perspective is how the educational process was when they were in school. It goes same for college. They have a certain mindset of what the college experience was like for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that what's happened is the actual experience, boots on the ground, what's actually happening in the public schools, what's actually happening in the colleges is much, much different than it was just maybe 10, 15 years ago, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm thinking is that making people aware of things that changed may encourage these parents who are ultimately in charge, at least for a while, to take a closer look. Just take another closer look at what's happening and base their decision making on what they actually see, what's actually happening right now. And I think that may be getting missed, and that brings in the whole thing of social media and the news cycle and all that stuff. So it's a very complicated soup. Hey guys, I have an exciting announcement. We just recently made some updates to our 3 most popular online courses at processchilleracademy.com. If you're a technician that's looking to improve your skills a little bit, maybe get some specialized training to give more value to your customers and your employer, or if you are an employer, a contractor that is looking to augment your existing in-house training with online training that can be accessible from any device, this is a really great opportunity. just go to processchilleracademy.com. Just scroll down on the homepage and you will see the course area. If you go into the course page, you will see that we are currently, for a limited time, we have a promo code of Chiller Pro that will save you 25% on any one of these courses. So I hope you check it out, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
There are a few colleges out there. Hillsdale, for example, University, a couple of them like that are trying to teach kids the skills that they need to have.
Right.
Not trying to re-engineer them.
Yeah.
Liberty, I think Liberty University, it's more of a religious base, but it's still focused on learning and teaching skills in areas that are, they're academic, but still the traditional skills versus the social engineering stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for a long time, Martin. It's when I was in the business, I could see it, the indoctrination going on in classrooms. I couldn't do anything about it, but except complain, which I'm good at. But it's still, it was still happening, and it still is happening. In fact, I see it growing every year. And
yeah.
I think COVID might have been something that brought light to where it was. I think if we hadn't had something like this happen in our history, that parents would continue to believe that, oh, everything's fine at school. And, right now we're looking at a country that's sorely divided based on the progressive, if you will, ideology that's being portrayed by a lot of our young people. And where did that come from? It came out of our school system.
Right.
But we've already, our teachers in our school system, I shouldn't say our teachers do what they're told to do. They teach the curriculum they're told to teach. But basically, the education of our kids has indoctrinated 2 or 3, almost 3, maybe 2 anyway, generations of kids that are coming out that are now adults and young and parents and stuff like that, young parents that are saying, well, we need this democratic socialism. Otherwise, America's going to die the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, whether we are going to be able, hopefully we're going to be able to strike that agreement between both sides and bring America back to where it was, working together instead of so divided as it is today.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're in trouble. Well,
I want to shift gears here a little bit, man. I don't think I'm going to get through half the stuff I want to talk to you about today. So I want to switch gears, and you listen to the latest podcast that I published the other day. It was skilled trades versus college.
Yeah, that's very good.
Thank you. Yeah, and what I want to do is I want to drill down into one thing that the more I look at this, the more it just amazes me. And so I want to look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics website here. And what I was amazed at, the first thing I did in my research is I went in and I said, okay, how many organizations reference BLS.gov, the wage data that they put out, right? And what I found is that many, not all, but many of the news media sources, many of the colleges, even some high school counseling folks, they refer to this data very heavily, right? So I said, all right, so let's do this. I want to look at a trade I know really well, and I know a lot of people in the HVAC refrigeration trade. That's where I came up.
Right.
And so I took that as my case study, and I went through here and I looked at, one of the glaring things. So what I'm looking at is the code 49-9021. So if you Google that, it'll come up with this. And so this is heating, air conditioning, refrigeration mechanics, or also known as service techs and installers. So the first glaring thing is the difference in wage base between a mechanic, i.e. service tech, and installer is significantly different. So that's the first thing that just blew my mind. And then going down here, so that was the glaring one. And then the first box that you come to, it says, okay, in this sampling, they have 344,020, we'll just call them individuals that fit in this big pot. And the mean wage is $25.68 per hour, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that can't be right. So, or $25.68 per hour comes to $53,410 annual mean. Now, mean is middle of the road, basically, in English. So then the next box down here, they give you the same thing. They say they give you a spread. So they'll give you a percentile of mean. So mean, and again, what's interesting, the mean is different or median is different. So I guess anyway, it's calculated different. I'm not a statistician, but I can tell you that this looks really weird to me. The lower 10% is $15.34 an hour. And the top 90 percentile, in other words, the best of the best in this classification is $38.86, right? And that's a national average.
Right.
I can tell you, I mean, if you're an employer, which I've been, and I know a lot of employers, if they could find somebody for a journeyman technician for $38 an hour, with a few exceptions, and there's a few states that, the wages are relatively low, they would be jumping up and down happy.
Oh yeah.
$38 an hour is I don't know, for a service tech. I don't know much about installers. I didn't really, I employed mostly, service technicians. Anyway, so I'm going to kind of pause that one. And then, so what I did is I did a very unscientific poll on LinkedIn, and this is really interesting. So what I did is I put a poll out on LinkedIn. You should be able to see. Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, I see.
And unfortunately, it's really cool the way LinkedIn does that they allow you to do this. But I was only able to put 4 different questions or 4 different variables into the poll. And I basically said, if you have a journeyman service technician in the United States, what and this went out to service technicians, it went out to business, it went out to everybody in my network, which is mostly business owners and technicians. So 81% says that they pay over $35 an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is that I believe that the actual wages, even just getting to 50-50 is in the United States is going to be pretty close to $40 an hour, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just extrapolate it, and
I think the average in some areas is around it's in the 30s, but yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, and you also, I think you got to figure that they're taking when they come up. Well, first of all, their stuff is old,
right?
And second of all, when they come up with these numbers, they're including union, non-union, everybody.
Right.
And
well,
so,
that would even make the numbers even more weird because, so I delved into how they actually collect this data, which is really interesting. There's an FAQ, and I'm not going to bore you with this, but there's an FAQ that answers the question, well, where do you come up with this data? And basically what they do is it's just a huge extrapolation. So what they do is they send out mailers to businesses at random, and there's a lot to it, but the Reader's Digest is they send out mailers and then they do follow-up calls on to verify numbers, right? Well, yeah. I mean, I was in business many years, and I can't remember getting a call. And even if I did, I was so busy, I didn't have time to tell them anything.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, what my next plan on this project, Jim? Well, let me get actually before I go on that. Tell me what your impression is of what I just shared. I'm curious.
Well, like I said, I think you're on the right track. It's just that the federal data from this website and everything else is old. I mean, there's no way they can keep up with it. Number 2, and number 3, they try to take the too big a chop of the thing, and it would be better if the feds were to have the state labor people do individual and then average that out. which I think they do some of that. But I mean, it's just, it's okay for a benchmark to start your research. But the reality is that, if you're going to do that, another issue in journeyman and apprenticeships and everything else is what we call the parallel programs. And there are a lot of training programs that pretend to be, regular labor apprenticeship programs that are not affiliated with the building trades and the building trades council. They're just training people and turning them out, and they go out and they consider themselves as journeyman plumbers, but they're not associated with the real life of plumbers. And then all of a sudden, saying, well, they got the same skill level as a journeyman. Well, no, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the real journeyman gets paid a lot more than the parallel guy does. So
Right.
there's a lot of that kind of screws up their numbers.
Yeah.
But I think as far as digging this out, you're on the right track. It's like I said, it's more of a state issue. I wish the states would turn out this kind of data instead of the feds.
Right.
It'd be a lot more current, a lot more down to what today is.
Yeah. Or maybe partnering with ADP, one of these big payroll services, right?
Right.
They get all the data.
Yep.
It wouldn't nowadays. I mean, 2022 here, they should be able to, with all the technology around, get more accurate information. So, what my next plan, Jim, is in the near future here on the website. I partnered with Microsoft's 365, and I've got some of their best and brightest trying to help me. We're going to put together a real poll, a national poll, and we're going to ask a bunch of questions, and I'm going to put it out there with the network. It's going to be unscientific, so I'm not going to be charging anything for it or whatever. But what I want to see in real time is what's going on by region, like from the actual technicians and the business owners. I want to find out exactly what's going on, and I got a feeling the differences between what's being put out and what's reality is going to be two different things. And the reason why I even think this is relevant, why I think this is something to check out, is that one of the big headwinds that we've got in skilled trades is it's super easy to point to low wages. It's easy to say that I think is part of the narrative that we're fighting against, why we can't get young people in the trades.
Right.
College counselors and people that have influence on these young people are saying, look, if you're a doctor or lawyer or bachelor's degree in this area, this is what you're going to make. And, and yeah, you can do a skilled trade. That's a good fallback position, but this is what you're going to make. Right. And that latter one, if the numbers are incorrect, that's going to drive these people to college. And, not that I'm against college, but it seems to me that, if the individual is not meant for college, you got to give them the right information, Well,
and then, there's been a lot of improvement in the college areas with the degrees, but there's still a lot of what I call crap degrees out there. I get a bachelor's degree in animal husbandry of the tsetse fly or something like that. Come on, people, what skill is that? If you go to college and learn to be a doctor, obviously, I won't say lawyer because I'm not sure what they go to school for. But if you look at a skill college degree that is skill based or something that you had. I went into education. I had to take education courses. I had to. That's it.
Right.
But if you look at these guys that are going through and learning all of the medical stuff, they're getting degrees in nursing and stuff like that. There's a lot of hands-on. You're getting skills. You're getting a college degree in nursing. You're getting some skills.
Mm-hmm.
Theory-based degrees are okay if you're going to work in a think tank or something, but there's still not a real hands-on skill training that's going on in a lot of college degrees. And I think that's cheapening them. I mean, I think that's putting them in a category that's not going to help the student much.
Hmm.
but it also
So
could be something that the student can get easily.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So what do you think, Jim? What's your Reader's Digest on what business owners can do? You know, skilled trade enthusiasts, people that have a vested interest in skilled trade. What can we all do collectively to start to change that mindset, the hearts and minds of skilled trades? How do we unearth the value of skilled trades in the minds of people? You know, where it's at right now. Do you have any ideas on how to do that?
well, I think a lot of it is marketing, Martin. I mean, it's there always used to be a standard joke, I guess you would call it, in the trades that if you wanted to be a master of a certain trade, like a master plumber, what you did is you learned how to do some simple things with all kinds of different terminology, and then you didn't share the terminology with anybody, so they didn't know what you were doing. You know?
Yeah.
And a lot of that was the way it was in the past. They kind of protected their trades. They
Yeah.
kind of protected their skills. I think even now today is even more important than it's ever been. We got to get out there and sell the
Hmm.
fact that America needs even as much and even not even maybe even more than a bunch of college degree people. We need people that can do and know how to do the work. They have the skills to do the things that America needs. Why are we in a situation today that I know a lot of it is money, but why are we in a situation today where we're outsourcing everything to countries and now we're dependent upon them to give us the stuff that we should have been making ourselves?
Yeah.
Why are we that way? Because we're not teaching skills, we're teaching theory. And people got to realize that this country was not built on bachelor's degrees. It was built by hand.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a person in the 1800s that didn't know how to do things with their hands to build a house or whatever.
Hmm.
Today, I got to call. I got to get my, I used to have a 12-year-old grandson. Now he's 20, but I used to get my 12-year-old grandson to fix the damn computer because I know how to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have that skill. Now a lot of kids have that skill now, and they can go to college and learn even more about it. But the bottom line is that could they tear it down and put it back together?
Well, yeah. And the other thing that just doesn't get talked about enough, Jim, is the fact that a lot of these degrees that are especially computer science now, with artificial intelligence coming online, all these really amazing technology breakthroughs coming through. It's conceivable that a lot of these graduates in the next few years, they may get a great job working for one of the big companies here. Let's say a coder, a computer science person, a database expert, whatever it is, game designer. That's what a lot of these guys want to do, or a lot of these kids want to do.
The kids do, yeah.
Yeah, there's a good possibility that those skills can be outsourced, right?
Right.
And one of the things that never gets talked about is a lot of these nation states, they pay for their kids' college educations, right?
Right.
So right out of the gate, our people are, these college graduates are at a disadvantage because they got a big debt they got to pay, or their parents do.
Yeah.
And they get outsourced because they're competing with people that can do it a lot cheaper, and they don't have a college debt per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just they're at a disadvantage. And again, for me, I'm a proponent of skilled trades, but you're not going to outsource a 500-ton chiller.
No.
That thing's sitting where it's sitting, and you got to have somebody to repair it. You're not going to have somebody to come in flying from another country at half the rate and fix it typically. I mean, I guess that happens, but I've never heard of it happening. So,
well, and you're not going to push a button and have a house built either. You
right.
got to build it.
Yeah.
You're not going to have any of these huge skyscrapers and stuff built by a theorist. You're going to have hands-on to get it done.
Yeah.
It scares people. I can remember in the old days of doing, every 2 weeks or whatever, I had to go to board meetings and stuff like that and present. if it was my turn, I'd had to present whatever we were doing in VocEd and whatever we were doing. And I also had all of the court and community schools, and we'd talk about what we were doing to the board. And I can remember one night, I thought they were going to have a fit because I had an agreement with Ironworkers Union in Sacramento, and they were building the federal courthouse there in Sacramento. And so I go out there and I present. I said, now we've got 5 kids that are working, that are being placed, that are learning how to get into the apprenticeship program, but they're not being paid yet. They're high school kids. And they're over there at the working on the federal courthouse. So what are they doing? I said, walking iron. And they said, what do you mean walking iron? I said, they're walking iron. They're 8-10 stories in the air walking iron. Oh my God. What are you going to do? You got kids. Hey, that's the job.
Yeah.
You have to learn that skill. They got all the safety stuff, they won't fall too far, but those were the kind of things in dealing with boards that in those days were so indoctrinated into the academic areas instead of the vocational area. They didn't understand.
Right.
It just goes on and on. I had sheriff's office programs where we'd train kids to get ready to go into the sheriff's office when they were old enough and to be juniors and stuff. Well, they had to shoot, so I would put in purchase requests, and they'd take it to the board before they'd allow me to do it, to buy, 10,000 rounds of 38 caliber, whatever. And then I'd have to go fight for it. Well, what do you need this for? Well, because they want to be cops. Cops have to know how to shoot. So they have to go to the range and they have to shoot guns. Oh, I don't know if we want our kids shooting guns. Well, if they want to be cops, they're going to have to, and of course it comes down to, I go back to that indoctrination thing. Or you don't want them to shoot guns because you don't like guns, or because you think they're too young to handle it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So those are the kind of things that we were dealing with then. And I'm sure now it's probably even worse. I don't know. It could be better. I don't know, but it's probably worse. So
hey, Jim,
marketing, I think, is the key, Martin. I think that we've got to get, even if labor unions and parallels and everybody gets together, they've got to start marketing the idea that, and making it easier for the kids to go right straight into a pre-apprenticeship program, or even into a regular training program, so we can get more kids into the trades. Otherwise, this country's going to be in trouble if it tries to do everything with a bachelor's degree. It's not going to work.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, before we wrap up, I can't believe we've been talking almost an hour, actually over an hour now. We might have to make this a part. I might have to do two. Let's see. Hey, I want to talk about your blog here. So I've got it up on the screen here. It's called the Senior Thoughts. At least you didn't call it a senior moment.
No, I have senior moments too, but I mean, senior thought. It's just something, I sit here and I listen to the news and I watch TV and I drive around town, look and see what's going on. And you get you thinking about, well, why are we doing this? Or what is this? How does this work?
So how many posts you got? Is that your grandson on there?
Believe it or not, that's my great grandson about 2 years ago.
Oh, dude, you're old.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. So, man, you got a few posts here. I guess I'm a little bit behind.
I try to do 1 or 2 a week, if at least. Yeah. I'll keep throwing them out. Once in a while, I get too busy to throw one in, but I have to take a shot at things every once in a while.
I like how you begin all your posts with I was just thinking about. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So if okay, what I'll do is I'll put the link to your blog on the show notes.
Good. Yeah.
And let's see your contacts. So if people want to whoa, what happened here? I see. Okay, so people can contact you on the contact page. Just roll down to the bottom there and first name, last name, easy peasy. Got some great pictures in here, man.
I used to have a beard. I got rid of it.
Yeah, you're looking pretty respectable these days, Jim. You really are.
I'm getting ready for elk camp.
So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I very much look forward to continuing to connect with you. Please don't hesitate to send me messages on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. Or you can reach out to me on my email. I'm at mking@processdrailleracademy.com. And until next week, when I give you the next installment, I wish you a great week, and I will connect up with you again soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.